Hi, this is Darren from Southpaws. This is usually the part of the show where I ask you to buy some coffee cups from me for the holidays. I'm going to do a little something different this time. I want you to do a personal favor for me. I want you to help a longtime supporter of this show. Paul Simons owns the Big Boy Restaurant located at 4950 Wilson Avenue Southwest in Wyoming. He's been a big supporter of the show for a long time, and now he needs your help. The coronavirus has affected his business horribly, and now with indoor dining closed again, he's not sure he can stay in business. So if you're hungry, call ahead to Big Boy at 616-530-0004. Order a Big Boy sandwich, get yourself a Slim Jim, get an order of fries, get an order of onion rings, get whatever you're hungry for, and help out Paul. It would be a big favor to me. Again, that's the Big Boy at 4950 Wilson Avenue Southwest, Wyoming, Michigan. They're right behind Rivertown Crossings Mall. They're right across the street on Wilson Avenue from Costco. The phone number is 616-530-0004. Make sure you call out there, tell Paul I sent you.
For the hardest-hitting show in talk radio, the true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
And I'm Katy Steele, Baroni for Jack Prince.
Yes, good morning. We are recording the morning of Friday, November the 20th, as we are starting to barrel roll into the holiday season. Gosh, Thanksgiving's next week already. Yeah, and we're imploring you, please stay home. Do not go to family gatherings for Thanksgiving. The coronavirus is spreading far out of control.
Imagine the dishes you're going to save. Just cook your turkey and turn on your Zoom.
Watch the Detroit Lions figure out a new way to lose.
It'll just be like every other year, except instead of being subjected to, a global pandemic, you'll not have to do as many dishes, and you'll keep yourself safe. It's going to be great.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we implore you again, please just don't do the big gathering this year so that you can do a big gathering next
every year.
Yes, and every year afterwards. That's a good point. And speaking of watching the Lions lose, we have a great Hammer Time segment this week. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Before we get into the meat of today's show, a couple of reminders. You can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter, Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr, southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can also find us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio there. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com. Do a search for Southpaws Radio there. You can find us at Stitcher.com by doing a search for Southpaws there as well. You can find us at Apple Podcasts by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. Links to our podcast are sent to our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Tumblr accounts. You can listen to us at Global Community Radio Channel 1. We're on every Saturday night at 11 p.m. You can also listen to us on great Pacifica stations across the country, including KCEI-FM in Taos, New Mexico, and KZGM in Kabul, Missouri. Yes, we have producers of the show. Stella's decided to join us today. And
They've been waiting very patiently to be introduced.
And Rascal has been joining us all morning here. We've actually had to change locations today to record. We're actually back at Jack Prince's house. So it's nice to see Stella and Rascal back with us here. Oh, boy, and we have got quite a bit to talk about. By the way, Jack might be joining us next week by phone.
Yay, that'd be nice. I miss Jack.
Yes, we all miss Jack around here. All right. Well, but after we finished recording last week's show, came the news that Georgia went for Biden, apparently, but they were going to do a hand recount.
Yeah.
The hand recount finished last night, and it confirmed Joe Biden definitely won Georgia by about 12 or 13,000 votes.
Thanks to the organizing and the groundwork and grassroots efforts of mostly black females in Georgia. Just gonna throw that out there.
And everybody's wanting to give Stacey Abrams credit. Well, it was more than just Stacey Abrams.
There's a lot of women down there doing the organizing, and I know a lot of very powerful women from Michigan that have gone down there in the last 5 years, so I'm sure they all had a part in it.
And very progressive Georgia voters.
Oh, yeah. People have no idea, but that is, when you look at what's happening in Georgia, you see what could happen across the nation.
And then you have what's happening today. I've got this story. This is Ed White, David Eggert, and Zeke Miller writing for the Associated Press out of Detroit. Donald Trump summoned Michigan's Republican legislative leaders to the White House for an extraordinary meeting Friday amid a long-shot GOP push to subvert the democratic process that handed the battleground state to Joe Biden. So what they're looking at doing, at least what Trump is looking to do, is to force the state legislators in Michigan to pad the Electoral College with Republican electors instead of Democratic electors, because Biden won Michigan handily, 150,000 vote difference.
This is what I posted on Facebook probably a day after the election, 2 days after the election, when I saw the numbers and was confident that Biden had won, and it still hadn't been announced or official, but I was confident he had won. It was really clear that he had plenty of votes, and that the next step was to make sure that all of the votes in every state are certified, and that we're not sending a bunch of ridiculous electors to the Electoral College, right? So those are the two things that we had to focus on. And what has it been? Less than 3 days, and they're already trying to get all the votes decertified from the black communities and send in crazy extreme right-wing electors. I don't...
Of course. Continuing here with the AP story, two people familiar with the matter told the Associated Press that Trump invited Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey and House Speaker Lee Chatfield. They agreed to go, according to a state official aware of the leader's plans. The two officials spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were discussing private conversations. It was not immediately clear what the meeting would be about. Neither Shirkey nor Chatfield commented. We know what it's about. Trump's trying to stack the Electoral College.
To skew the Electoral College, which is why we have it, which is why it's there. It gives people like Trump a tool.
Yep. And by the way, all 83 counties have certified the election for Biden, including Wayne County. And let's talk about that for a quick minute. Wayne County originally split 2-2 that they were not going to certify. The two Republicans on that board originally stated they weren't going to certify. They wanted to throw out the votes in Detroit.
Because, black people live in Detroit.
Even though there were more discrepancies in the city of Livonia than there were in the city of Detroit.
We know what it's about. It's about voter suppression.
It's about racism. It's about voter suppression. It's about Republicans wanting to be thieves because they're a bunch of crooks. Conservatives are violent and they're crooked. Every single goddamn last one of you, period, end of story.
No, some are really just ignorant. Some are really just that ignorant. So we can't. But complacency is complicity. If you're complacent, you're complicit. It is, but at what level?
Line.
At what level is your ignorance even beyond complicity? You know what I mean? Because some of these people, it's just how do they even find their way out of their house?
Yeah, that's a surprise that they do find.
It's a philosophical question, but I'm just saying.
This is after, by the way, Chatfield had said, we're going to go with what the voters have selected.
Right.
So now Trump's going to try and put the pressure on Chatfield. By the way, Chatfield's term limited, so he's not going back to the state legislature, at least on the representative side. Now, he might take a run at the Michigan Senate, but that election isn't until 2022 because that's every 4 years.
And maybe I'm reading this wrong, but I get the impression, the feeling that the GOP is done with Trump. They've accepted Biden. They've accepted the negotiations that they've made behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And he is done. And right now he is clinging to anything he can in the GOP to make him relevant. But there's not much there.
And by the way, Mike Shirkey is also term limited in 2022.
Yeah.
Thank God. I hope he doesn't run for Congress. I'm hoping he
Trash.
goes back to his business in Jackson, because then he'll be in a better place, which is far away from politics. Continuing the AP story, Trump's campaign is openly floating the notion of trying to get friendly state legislatures to appoint electors who would overturn the will of the voters. If Trump succeeds in convincing Michigan State Board of Canvassers not to certify Biden's victory in the state, state lawmakers could be called on to select electors. But such a brazen move would be unprecedented and possibly illegal. It would be certain to draw a swift legal challenge. No, let me just stop right there. If they try this, every single progressive needs to start marching in the streets. You want it? Bring it. Time to do it, folks. It's time. It's beyond time. Far beyond time.
I don't know that that's even going to help us now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing we got. And it's so laughable listening to the gun control argument now because they've got weapons that, come on, what's your gun going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm a little nervous. It's time to stand up, but
Yeah.
I think we got to be logical
up.
and be outside of the box and maybe outsmart their violence at some point.
Well, I made my opinions known. The only
I get it. I
the
hear you.
only response to violence is violence. That's all
I'm
there
not
is.
saying necessarily that the organized response would necessarily be peaceful, but I mean, it just seems like all the things we've tried before are not working. It seems like we've been in the streets for years now. Like, what do we do? What do we really do?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Let me just say the Civil Rights Act would not have happened had it not been for violence in the streets.
That's absolutely true. And the consistent direct action and willingness of people to sacrifice themselves and their freedom.
As I've said on the show for years, this country is founded on violence. The Boston Tea Party was a bunch of white people dressing up like Native Americans and throwing tea in the harbor. That started it all. We're going to just be real blunt with history here. It wasn't a tea party. It was a bunch of white people that got sick of the king, but then blamed it on the natives.
But let's be honest, it wasn't violence. It was property destruction.
That's true. Yep. And what have we said on the show? Property destruction is not violence. Exactly. Continuing the AP story, both Shirkey and Chatfield have indicated that they will not try to overturn Biden's win. Shirkey's spokeswoman said last week, quote, Michigan law does not include a provision for the legislature to directly select electors or to award electors to anyone other than the person who received the most votes, end of quote.
Huh. How'd that work out for Bernie Sanders? Sorry.
Exactly. On November 6th, Chatfield tweeted, quote, whoever gets the most votes will win Michigan, period. End of story. Then we move on. End of quote. By the way, Lee, that period, end of story, that's my line. That's trademarked. So, asked at a Lansing news conference about the plan for legislative leaders to visit Trump, Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer said, quote, I hope they wear masks and I hope they stay safe. End of quote. Did you see her say that
I didn't
on
see
TV?
it.
That was great. Because I'm trying to remember who asked the question. I think it might have been Tim Skubic from Lansing Public TV. Oh, boy. Whitmer added, quote, all the meetings in the world, though, can't take away from the fact that Joe Biden won Michigan by over 150,000 votes. That's 14 times the margin that Donald Trump won by in 2016. So we will be sending a slate of electors that reflects the will of the people of Michigan at the end of this process, end of quote. Also Thursday, state officials said Michigan's largest county cannot revoke its certification of election results after two Republicans who approved Biden's local landslide wanted to revert to their initial stance of refusing to bless the vote tally. The GOP effort to change position represented another complication in what is typically a routine task. Monica Palmer and William Hartman, the two GOP canvassers in Wayne County, said they only voted to certify the results after hours of sustained pressure and after getting promises that their concerns about the election would be investigated. Yeah, because people went on social media and slammed these two partisan hacks.
As they should have. I mean, I'm so sick and tired of people with power and money being able to completely subvert the will of the voters. And to be in this position right now, after watching elections over the last 4 years, to have to defend it is a really difficult thing to ask the majority of Americans to do. So it's not a surprise that we're in the situation we are right now.
So, yeah, Trump's trying to get Michigan back in play, and it's too late, buddy. It's far too late for you.
And it should be, because obviously the one thing I think that the majority does agree on is it can't be him. That's it. No, it's not like the majority agrees on Joe Biden, whatever. I don't care if people want to say that. If that's what makes them feel better, okay. But I know enough people to know that what we agree on is he needs to get the hell out of there. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, my mom is like, why don't they just put this son of a bitch on trial? I mean, I'm like, Mom,
because it's an oligarchy. No, it's because it's an oligarchy. He should have been on trial 4 years ago. There is no reason any of this should have gotten here, but we are already an oligarchy. We have been for years, and this is what we've accepted.
And we need to stop accepting
Yeah. Well, people need to understand and see what it is, too. They don't get it. They really think they have a voice. They just haven't been using it.
Yeah. And we might as well talk about that, too. What do you think about Biden coming out and saying, oh, we're not going to prosecute Trump? That's not what we're going to be about.
It's Biden saying we are an oligarchy. I'm in this position because I would never prosecute Trump, because then you guys will come back and hold me accountable.
This is what's called the rich looking out for each other.
Yeah, exactly. There's one justice system for us and another for them.
That's what Carlin talks about.
I knew you'd say it. I knew you'd bring him in because it's one small club and we ain't in it.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So, as one of my listeners repeatedly tells me when we talk on Facebook Messenger, things will not fundamentally change with Biden. And the thing is, he's correct.
Absolutely not. And nobody, I don't think, expects them to.
No.
The problem is that so many people are comfortable. They don't want fundamental change. That scares them because they're comfortable and white and they have power.
That's true.
So that's what they're voting for, is to keep things fundamentally the same.
Yeah, the status quo.
The people that need help don't have the power. And that's why it's not a difficult choice to see where you should ever side. You should always side with the people with the least amount of power.
Exactly, and that's why we have homeless people. You had mentioned on your Facebook earlier this week about an incident at a gas station at a convenience store where the clerk called the cops on a homeless guy. Yeah,
just for being there, because she didn't need him hanging out at the store, and he looks really scruffy, and it scares the customers, and so the cops come up, and the guy just says to her, "Which way did he go?" And she says, "Oh, he went that way," and she says, "Can you have a cruiser out here? Because he just keeps coming back." And the cop says, "Well, we're too busy for that, but I'll trespass him so he doesn't bother you anymore." And then I leave, and they're giving the guy a trespassing ticket. Like you're trespassing just for existing now. Unless you have, $2,200, $2,300 a month to rent a house down the road.
Oh, yeah.
Like what?
Yeah. $2,200 a month to rent a place.
In Wyoming, Michigan.
Yes.
In the industrial wasteland that is Wyoming, Michigan, a mile away from Steelcase and GM and the railroad tracks and the big industrial phone lines and right on top of the compressed natural gas line. Yeah, they want $2,300 a month to rent in a place where you're probably going to die just breathing the air and drinking the water.
Yeah. Let me just do the math here. $2,200 a month for a year is $26,400, which is more than a lot of people make.
Yeah. It would pay off the house in 4 years if it's, around the value of what they're going for right now. And then that person who's renting it out could just amass a fortune.
And one thing that you had mentioned in posting about the homeless guy, and I really did not know about this, but if you're homeless, you really have nowhere to go during the day. They kick you out of the shelters.
Right. No, you can only stay in the shelters until, gosh, it's early too. I want to say like 9 a.m. There's a cheap breakfast and then you got to go. And it's around the same time that they start washing the streets. This is a thing they didn't used to do, but now I've seen them on South Division with hoses. And they will hose down the streets to clean them after the bars. Not so much during COVID have I seen it, but before COVID. And that was how they would get the people that were sleeping on the streets off, by hosing the streets down. And so during the day...
In other words, hosing the people down.
Right. You can't even go outside and lay down. And I'll tell you, gosh, it was probably 5 years ago, my brother got arrested for trespassing while standing at a bus stop.
Are you kidding me?
I swear to God. He, at the time, they knew who he was from his face. I think he had a place to stay at that time. But he was at the bus stop, and they just gave him a hard time. And when they went to frisk him, they found a pocket knife on him, and they gave him a felony weapons charge. And he was in jail for a couple of months, I think, before he went through his trial and got a public defender who was amazing. And she fought for him, and she got the case dropped and thrown out because they had no right to arrest him for trespassing at a bus station. But how many homeless people actually go through the process and get a public defender? They don't. That's why they get away with it.
Exactly.
They are criminalizing poverty, and they're making us all suffer in poverty. So we really got to look out for each other because there's not going to be anybody to help us.
Exactly. The police write these tickets for trespassing. You expect these people to defend themselves in court. They don't have the money to live anywhere.
Right.
You think they're going to have the money to hire an attorney?
Most of them are mentally ill, and they don't even have the communication skills to get themselves out of a situation like that. And I see it every day. If you go down Wealthy and look at those restaurants, the homeless people from downtown are now down there standing outside asking the customers for money. And I think that is the most important slap in the face for these people that they could get. They need to sit there with their brunch and think about how that guy has nowhere to go, and they just close their eyes to that.
Wow, it's just unbelievable. Oh, actually, I want to get to this as well. And then we'll get into a couple of opinion pieces here that have been spectacularly written. I have this. This is Paul LeBlanc and Jeremy Diamond writing for CNN out of Washington. This is dated November 15th. White House Coronavirus Task Force member Dr. Scott Atlas criticized Michigan's new COVID-19 restrictions in a tweet shortly after they were announced Sunday evening, urging people to rise up against the new public health measures. He said, quote, "The only way this stops is if people rise up. You get what you accept." End of quote. He then added hashtag Freedom Matters, hashtag Step Up. You know what I'd like to give him? Hashtag Mask It or Casket.
What a dipshit.
Yep. I gotta agree with that one.
Honestly, if you don't want to be a cold-blooded murderer and you don't want people to die and have their blood on your hands, that's probably not what you should do. Just a tip for you.
Yeah, let me once again add that this guy said this after the governor of Michigan was the target of a kidnapping plot by militia members. They were going to put her on trial in a kangaroo court and then execute her.
Yeah.
Murder her.
They don't call it that, though. That's the thing. They come up with all these different taglines that all of a sudden aren't murder. It's really crazy how they think.
It's freedom.
It's almost like they're taking a lesson from the cops. Because I keep reading these articles about how people are just dying, after a struggle with police, and nobody talks about how anybody killed them. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's almost like the right is adopting this whole finding a way to describe murder without calling it that, and so now it's just not murder.
Unbelievable. Continuing the story from CNN, his message, which runs counter to the consensus of public health officials, is likely to fuel new tension between the White House and Michigan Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer, whom federal and state officials announced last month was the target of an alleged domestic terrorism kidnapping plot. Well, we say alleged because they haven't been tried yet, but there's plenty of evidence.
And because they didn't actually kidnap her yet.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
By the way, the guy from Wisconsin that's allegedly part of this plot was in court on Thursday attempting to claim that the state can't extradite him because The alleged victim was the person who signed off on the extradition. It's a conflict of interest.
That would be a conflict of interest, I would imagine. Why would they have?
Well,
because that's the only person that can do it. There has to be something.
Well, the judge sided not with the defendant. They sided with the district attorney, and they're sending his ass to Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and that's probably because that was already established that in this situation, that's how that would have to happen. But, I mean, come on, to think that you're going to get off because come on, cheap.
Yeah. Whitmer told CNN's Wolf Blitzer Sunday evening, quote, "We know that the White House likes to single us out here in Michigan. Me out in particular. I'm not going to be bullied into not following reputable scientists and medical professionals," end of quote. Instead, Whitmer said she consults, quote, "people that actually have studied and are well-respected worldwide on these issues, not the individual that is doing the president's bidding on this one," end of quote. And Dana Nessel pretty much backed her up on that one.
And can we just be really honest for a second? The reason that Fox News and Donald Trump hate Dana Nessel and hate Gretchen Whitmer is because they can't buy their power. Donald Trump cannot buy their power. He can't purchase sex from them. He can't offer them enough money to give them more power because they have more power than he's ever going to have to sell, right? Or to buy, I mean.
And
it's
and for that matter, they're women.
Yeah, but that's it. That's why he hates women. It's because he wants and needs them so much. And these two, he can't have. That's it. He could never have it. And that's the thing that I think just makes him so furious.
He wants women for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is sex.
Yeah, and that should be the only power they're allowed to have in his mind because he can buy that. You know what I mean? But if you give them a governorship or you give them an attorney general seat, he can't buy that power from them. And that's like, yeah, he can't handle that, and I love it. Oh, God.
And it's not just Trump. It's I'll
men,
just say
yes.
it's all Republican men, and quite a few Democratic ones, too. Let's just call them out.
And I'm not even going to make it about the gender, but I think it's the testosterone thing, honestly, because I've seen it in women. I have seen it, that same tendency, but it's like there is something in people that does that to them.
Yeah. Power tends to corrupt.
Yes, it does. But I love watching how mad it makes him. That is probably one of the best parts of seeing those two in power.
You know, I wish the cartoons could come to life because I would like to see the top of Trump's head just pop right off with steam coming out of it, him turning red, steam coming out of his ears.
He can't call any of them ugly. Like, that's the best part, too. Not even Jocelyn Benson. Like, he can't even come at them for their looks like he would most women because they're all attractive, so... It is really a victory for me.
If Trump wants ugly, all he has to do is, one, look in the mirror, and two, look at his own heart.
Right.
Right there is ugly.
It's very true.
Oh, boy. By the way, Dana Nessel added this, quote, "A patriot is one who protects America from its enemies, both foreign and domestic. COVID-19 is the enemy, not each other. Stop pitting Americans against each other and start supporting policies proven to effectively fight the virus," end of quote.
Yeah. Sounds all logical and smart.
Yep.
Must be like a different language to Trump.
Oh, God. It's a foreign language to him. It really is.
Oh, don't say foreign because he won't even try to hear it.
International language. I have to laugh. I gotta
China.
I gotta pause and do an aside here for those of you that know that I am a huge pro wrestling fan. Grew up watching it for many years. At one point, after Ted Turner purchased what was Jim Crockett Promotions and turned it into World Championship Wrestling, there was an edict that had went out through the Turner organization. It was more specifically designed to CNN. CNN did not want the word foreign used on its broadcasts anymore. Use the word international.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So that got pushed over onto World Championship Wrestling. So instead of a wrestler pulling a foreign object out of his trunks to hit another wrestler, they literally had to call it an international object. I am not joking. Go back to their broadcast.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, it's really they're really easy to find. I'm not going to pitch them, but WWE Network has the entire World Championship Wrestling tape library. So, yeah, go from there. And that actually, since I'm talking wrestling, then we'll move off of it. But I've got something that's tied into more labor issues than really politics. And I want to mention this. Last week, World Wrestling Entertainment, the WWE, released one of their wrestlers, Zelina Vega. What was her crime? She was trying to get the wrestlers to unionize. She posted on her Twitter, "I believe in unions." 10 minutes later, WWE posts a notice saying, "We have come to terms on the release of Zelina Vega. We wish her all the best in her future endeavors."
Dangerous word.
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody call my job the night before I got let go, and it was shortly before I left that day, and they just said, "Are you guys unionized?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so." And probably 5 minutes after that, my boss comes walking down the hallway, the owner of the company, and he says, "Who just called?" And I told him the number, and he said, "What'd they say?" And I told him, and the next day I got called into the office by the other two partners, and they let me go. And I was like, "Ooh, somebody was worried I had an idea in my head."
Oh, boy.
Clearly didn't know I already had that idea in my head.
Well, the talk of unionization of wrestlers is coming up because World Wrestling Entertainment is now telling their talent that they can no longer have Twitch accounts or Cameo accounts that are not approved by WWE. In other words, WWE gave them an addendum to the contract that they had to sign. You had 30 days to sign this addendum to your contract, and if you didn't, you were let go.
You can't have people working to form dissent now.
That said, that you had to give WWE control over your Twitch account and your Cameo account, and you only got a percentage instead of getting all the money.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Anybody that would agree to that.
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to love it because Andrew Yang says as soon as Biden gets in, and he's got somebody in the Labor Department, he's going to talk to them severely about WWE and their misclassification of wrestlers as independent contractors.
He means when Bernie Sanders gets appointed as the Secretary of Labor? Because
I'm going to be in the minority on this. I hope Bernie stays in the Senate. Because if he goes to Labor, I got a feeling that Biden and the cronies,
at this point,
conservatives are going to gang up on him.
At this point, you're right that we need him in the Senate. We still don't have enough progressive voices, but I do think we have more progressive voices than ever before. And I think I think we need somebody in that position that is progressive enough to make real changes and stop just negotiating with the heads of the labor unions. Because come on, they are throwing workers under the bus. It's old.
Yep. Oh, boy. And I tell you what, I want to get to our next segment here, so might as well get the music ready.
Stop! Hammer time!
Oh, yeah, it's hammer time. It's time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. We haven't gotten to her yet, but our winner this week, Katy Steele. Who's Katy Steele? She is the wife of Detroit Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford. Well, why would she get hammer time this week? Well, we've got this story. This is Kyle Meinke writing for MLive.
Keep in mind, she is a very wealthy white wife of a professional football player.
Yeah, this is dated November 19th. This is out of Allen Park, Michigan. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer's COVID measures have faced plenty of criticism over the last few months, including directly from Trump himself. Now her policies have a new critic, Katy Steele. Stafford, the wife of Detroit Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford, ripped Whitmer's latest restrictions in a series of Instagram stories, including twice referring to the state as a dictatorship. She said she doesn't like being told what to do because she only lives once, and took particular aim at the potential fallout for local businesses. I love the look on your face.
I'm just sitting here like, all of these comments she made while redesigning her living room for the 14th time this year. Because
probably.
Because that is what she does for work.
That's what rich people do with their money.
And then they sit and talk about how they're tired of being in a dictatorship. Like, you don't even know what it's like to have a job. If you would call this a dictatorship, what would you call an actual job? Give her 5 hours of McDonald's, because she's going to call that like slave labor. You're going to be in a concentration camp now, right, Miss Stafford?
The ones that complain the hardest and the loudest about being a dictatorship are usually the ones that are the richest, and are the ones that would love to be the dictator if they had the power.
And that's what they're working towards.
Here's what she said on Instagram. Quote, "So I'm going to be very blunt. I'm so over it. I'm so over living in a dictatorship that we call Michigan. I understand there's a pandemic, and I understand it's very scary. I am scared of it too."
Does she, though? Does she understand? When you're getting in your private jet or your private helicopter to fly down the road, to take a jog on the coastline, and you never have to be within 6 feet of anybody except the pilot, who you're going to force to get the disease if he has to, because that's what you're paying him for. Like, do you really get it? I don't think she gets it.
Nope, I don't think she does either. Continuing, "If you are at risk, do not leave your house until there's a vaccine. But shutting down all these small businesses, things that people have worked their life for, shutting them down again is not the answer, because they will not make it."
Again, excuse my interruption. Can somebody help me understand how one doesn't leave the house if they're at risk and yet still manages to run a small business without employees? Like, help me out here.
But that same pilot, if he was at risk, she would demand that he would get in that plane.
Exactly, because that's what he's getting paid for.
Continuing. "So once we are able to leave our house, once this dictatorship decides to let us have some freedom, there will be nothing left. I'm just over it. I see all these people, and it brings me like to tears."
What is she crying about? She's got everything she needs in her goddamn house.
I continue.
I can't have these people anymore.
Continuing. Believe me, I know there are people out there who are stating, "That is really ignorant of you. How could you say that?" Listen, I know not everybody is going to agree with me. Not everybody is going to agree with every move I make. That's life, okay? We state our opinions, we move on. This is my opinion. I feel for these small businesses. It's not that I don't feel for people that have COVID or the hospitals. I do. But this is my opinion. I do not like living in a place where they tell me what I can and cannot do. I live once. Again, this is my opinion. You have yours. Everyone has their own. And we chalk it up to that. End of quote.
I want to know if she'd give that exact same opinion to her butler. Would she explain that to him, that she just doesn't like living in this world where she can't do whatever she wants, where somebody tells her what to do? Like, tell that to your maid. Because I'm pretty sure that everybody around you lives in that world, and that's what you make happen. I can't with these people.
Here's what she's complaining about. There were new orders that were issued on Sunday that last for 3 weeks. They were issued by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. They have the power to do it. It was given to them by the legislature back in the 19-teens. They can do this. The new order, which lasts for 3 weeks, bans in-person learning at colleges and high schools, suspends high school sports, and closed dine-in service at restaurants and bars. Theaters, arcades, bowling alleys, ice rinks, indoor water parks, and fitness classes are all prohibited through December 8th. Indoor gatherings remain limited to 10 people, and no more than 2 households can meet in the same place. Outdoor gathering limits are now capped at 25 people. Retail businesses such as salons, barbershops, public transit, child care centers, parks, and healthcare facilities can remain open. So can professional sports, although the new order means the Lions can no longer host spectators at their Thanksgiving game next week against Houston.
Which will be on TV anyways.
Yes. They had opened their last 2 games to 500 friends and family, including Katy Steele.
How kind of them. We're only going to risk the lives of our friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
By the way, her husband, Matt Stafford, has had 2 COVID scares, one of which was a false positive back when players were first reporting to training camp. That led to a new NFL rule designed to protect players from false positives. 2 weeks ago, he was placed on the COVID list after coming into close contact with an infected person. That forced him into a quarantine away from the team and his family. He nearly broke that quarantine when his daughter Hunter fell from a high chair and suffered a concussion. Then he caught a private plane to Minnesota, passed 2 more COVID tests that Sunday morning, and suited up against the Vikings.
Oh, how nice. Because when you can just take private planes everywhere, you're not actually quarantined like the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. Again, the pilot is being exposed, potentially.
Yep.
So then she got dragged on Instagram and everywhere else for her comments. So at 2:56 p.m., MLive has this update. Katy Stafford returned to Instagram to apologize for her comments, saying, quote, "All right, y'all, here's what I do best, coming back to apologize. After I read some of your things and I get grounded a little bit, I'm really sorry. I was in the heat of the moment. I have a friend losing her business and it's just getting to me a little bit. So I apologize for calling it a dictatorship, probably the not-so-smart use of words. But yeah, I just want it to work for everybody, and I know it's not going to work for everybody. It just kills me to see people suffer some financial burden for losing their business and also from getting sick. But I don't know. I apologize." End of quote.
I will say at least she apologized because it's so rare.
But she apologized because she was getting dragged.
Oh, absolutely.
She wasn't apologizing for what she said. She was apologizing because she got blowback from this
absolutely.
really hardcore.
Absolutely. I'm just saying it's one step above the dirty delete. So,
well, now let's see here. If she wants to help her friend that's losing her business, I have a solution. Give her some money. Loan her some money.
There you go.
You've got millions of dollars. Your husband's
hello.
got a multi-million-dollar NFL contract.
Uh-huh. And you're cool with, I haven't seen you standing up and speaking out about this Black Lives Matter stuff. Has she been the front lines trying to get her husband to kneel?
Nope.
Because clearly she doesn't really give a shit about other people's pain or suffering if she has a voice and doesn't want to use it for that.
Exactly. That's just exactly what it is. It's all about me, me, me. It's not about we. It's all about the me. Yeah, it's disgusting is what it is. Oh, boy. So, to Katy Stafford, the winner of Douchebag of the Week, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
That's right. You just need to take your millions of dollars and shut your mouth.
Pass it out.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot better. By the way, my first name is spelled with 2 R's and an E. So when you cut that check,
I can send you my Venmo.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, what is wrong with and that's part of the problem is that the wrong people are getting paid obscene amounts of money.
But that's what happens in an oligarchy, because when you've got income inequality like this, we've said it before. The people that wind up accumulating all of the wealth are the people that were willing to throw morals and integrity and friendships and family all under the bus. They took it, they traded it for the power. And so we're in a system like this, we're never going to end up with decent people at the top. It won't ever happen.
It will never happen.
And
Yeah,
now they just have
disgusting.
these death ray airplanes, so no worries at all, friends. No problems here.
If you missed that, you need to listen to last week's episode of the show.
Oh,
Beautiful stuff. Oh, boy. And, there's been talk after the election of let's all join together and sing Kumbaya. Well,
yeah, that's not going to happen.
that ain't going to happen. And we have 2 opinion pieces that have been written about this. The first one is Wajahat Ali writing for the New York Times. This is dated November 19th. The headline reads, "Reach out to Trump supporters," they said. "I tried. I give up." Yep, here's what he wrote. 73 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. He doubled down on all his worst vices, and he was rewarded for it with 10 million more votes than he received in 2016. The majority of people of color rejected his cruelty and vulgarity. But along with others who voted for Joe Biden, we are now being lectured by a chorus of voices, including Pete Buttigieg and Ian Bremmer, to reach out to Trump voters and empathize with their pain. This is the same advice that was given after Mr. Trump's 2016 victory, and for nearly 4 years I attempted to take it. Believe me, it's not worth it. The Quran asks Muslims to respond to disagreements and arguments in a better way and to repel evil with good. I tried. Quote, you might not like me and I might not like you, but we share the same real estate. So here's me reaching out across the aisle, American to American. End of quote. That is a video message to Trump supporters from Mr. Ali, published the day after the election. He continues, I really thought it might work. Growing up, I often talked about my Islamic faith with my non-Muslim friends, and I like to think that it might have helped to inoculate them from the Islamophobic propaganda and conspiracy theories that later became popular. So I assumed I could win over some Trump supporters whose frustrations and grievances have been manipulated by those intent on seeing people like me as invaders, intent on replacing them. So in late 2016, I told my speaking agency to book me for events in the states where Trump won. I wanted to talk to the people the media calls real Americans from the heartland, which is, of course, America's synonym for white people, Mr. Trump's most fervent base. Over the next 4 years, I gave more than a dozen talks to universities, companies, and a variety of faith-based communities. My standard speech was about how to build a multicultural coalition of the willing. My message was that diverse communities, including white Trump supporters, could work together to create a future where all of our children would have an equal shot at the American dream. I assured the audiences that I was not their enemy. I reminded them that those who are now considered white, such as Irish Catholics, Eastern European Jews, Greeks, and Italians, were once the boogeyman. I warned them that supporting white nationalism, and Trump in particular, would be self-destructive, an act of self-immolation that will neither help their families or America become great again. And I listened. Those in the audience who supported Trump came up to me and assured me they weren't racist. They often said they'd enjoyed the talk, if not my politics. Still, not one told me they'd wavered in their support for him. Instead, they repeated conspiracy theories and Fox propaganda channel talking points about crooked Hillary. Others made comments like, you're a good, moderate Muslim. How come others aren't like you? That's a direct quote.
Wow. This is hard for me to hear. And
in Ohio, I spent 90 minutes on a drive to the airport with a retired Trump supporter. We were cordial to each other, we made jokes, and we shared stories about our families. But neither of us changed our outlook. He told me, quote, they'll never take my guns, ever, end of quote, explaining that his Facebook feed was filled with articles about how Clinton and the Democrats would kill the Second Amendment and steal his guns. Although he didn't like some of Trump's tone and comments, he didn't believe he was a racist in his heart. I'm not a cardiologist, so I wasn't qualified to challenge that.
This is good writing.
In 2017, I was invited by the Aspen Institute, which hosts a festival known for attracting the wealthy and powerful, to discuss racism in America. At a private dinner after the event, I was introduced to a donor who I learned was a Trump supporter. As soon as I said white privilege, she began shooting me passive-aggressive quips about the virtues of meritocracy and hard work. She recommended I read Hillbilly Elegy, the best-selling book that has been criticized by those living in Appalachia as glorified poverty porn promoting simplistic stereotypes about a diverse region. By the way, I believe that's now a program, isn't it?
Really? I hadn't heard of it when you said the name.
I just saw the ad for it either this morning or last night.
I'm going to have to look into this.
And I believe it's on, I want to say either Showtime or HBO. It might be on Netflix.
They're like, once we make it a book, it's real. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. We're in trouble.
I even tried and failed to have productive conversations with Muslims who voted for Trump. Some love him for the tax cuts. Others only listen to Fox propaganda channels saying both sides are the same or believe he hasn't bombed Muslim countries. By the way, they're wrong. He has a lot.
And he pushes the stereotype. Come on.
Many believe they are the good immigrants as they chase whiteness and run away from blackness all the way to the suburbs. I can't make people realize they have black and brown skin and will never be accepted as white. I did my part. What was my reward? Listening to Trump's base chant, "Send her back," in reference to Representative Ilhan Omar, a black Muslim woman who came to America as a refugee. I saw the Republican Party transform the McCloskeys into victims, even though the wealthy St. Louis couple illegally brandished firearms against peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters. Their bellicosity was rewarded with a primetime slot at the Republican National Convention where they warned about chaos in the suburbs being invaded by people of color. Their speech would have fit well in the birth of a nation. We cannot help people who refuse to help themselves. Trump is an extension of their id, their culture, their values, their greed. He is their defender and savior. He is their blunt instrument. He is their destructive drug of choice. Don't waste your time reaching out to Trump voters as I did. Instead, invest your time organizing your community, registering new voters, and supporting candidates who reflect progressive values that uplift everyone, not just those who wear MAGA hats in local and state elections. Work also to protect Americans against lies and conspiracy theories churned out by the right-wing media and political ecosystem. One step would be to continue pressuring social media giants like Twitter and Facebook to deplatform hate mongers such as Steve Bannon and censor disinformation. It's not enough, but it's a start. Or you can just watch The Queen's Gambit on Netflix while downing your favorite pint of ice cream and call it a day. Just as in 2016, I don't need Trump supporters to be humiliated to feel great again. I want them to have health insurance, decent paying jobs, and security for their family. I do not want them to suffer, but I also refuse to spend any more time trying to understand and help the architects of my oppression. I will move forward along with the majority who want progress, equality, and justice for all Americans. If Trump supporters decide they want the same, they can always reach out to me. They know where to find me, ahead of them.
I think that's really important piece, number one, because, and at first I didn't necessarily agree with the whole thesis of don't reach out to Trump supporters, right? Because, but at the same time, I can see where they're coming from. They're saying don't make that your strategy, right?
Yeah.
It's not a good strategy. You're trying to apply logic to a fool.
Yep.
And you can't use logic with a fool. They don't use
They
logic.
don't understand. They don't understand
It will
logic.
never work. So what
No.
you need to do is, like they said, build community, right? Because that's no matter what, that's what's going to help you and save you.
Yeah. We have a secondary opinion piece. This is Jamie Davis Smith writing for Huffington Post on November 12th. The headline reads, "No, I will not be reaching out to Trump voters now or ever. Here's why." She is a atheist Jew who is also the mother of a disabled child, according to what she wrote here. I'm skipping down a little bit. She says, "I have watched as my communities have been threatened repeatedly. The day the 2020 election was called with Joe Biden projected to be our next president, I danced in the streets of Black Lives Matter Plaza along with thousands of others who finally felt like this long nightmare was coming to an end. But almost immediately, we began to hear calls to reach out to Trump supporters to mend fences. Pop star Katy Perry encouraged fans to follow her lead and tell family members who voted for Trump that they are here for them. Political scientist Ian Bremmer encouraged Biden voters to reach out to Trump supporters to show empathy. Former Senator Rick Santorum, who compared same-sex marriage to bestiality while holding office, urged Biden supporters to give Trump and his voters space to work through their feelings. These suggestions enraged me. Especially the Santorum one pissed me off because old Frothy running his mouth about stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, do we really need to, mitigate the like the bad feelings they're having for losing their hope for a fascist dictatorship? That seems a little crazy.
By the way, our longtime listeners will know not to look this up, but you new listeners, I'm going to warn you, do not look up the word Santorum as a noun on Google. You don't want to do it.
Okay, good to know. Will not do it.
As Katie starts typing on her phone.
Don't tell me what to do. I'll do it twice and take pictures.
Oh, gosh. Continuing the story here, these calls for unity come from a place of privilege, and they're coming from mostly straight, white, cisgender people who are financially secure. They may not have liked some of Trump's policies, but they were not actively harmed by them. They likely never feared for their safety or well-being in Trump's America, as you have pointed out. You hit it right on the head.
They're just trying to hold on to that, and they don't have much power. That's why they're so scared of losing it.
She continues, Gestures toward reconciliation are also premature given that Trump has yet to concede the election and still has about 2 months left in office to inflict even more damage, which he's doing
absolutely
already with the Pentagon.
But don't worry, he's only got those laser death Nazi planes now, so we'll be fine.
Yeah. And by the way, he fired the head of the agency.
Secretary of Defense, right?
No, the guy that was part of Homeland Security that controls the cyber and information.
The cyber information guy from
said,
DHS.
Yeah, the CISA guy. The guy that said that this was the most secure election in history.
Are you talking? Is this Krebs? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Chris Krebs.
Chris Krebs. Fired him because he didn't like that he said this is the most secure election ever.
Right.
Yeah. Before any attempt at unity can be made, there needs to be a reckoning, an acknowledgement that so many of Trump's actions have been unconscionable and do not align with societal ideals that claim to value all life. Building bridges with people who share Trump's views sends a clear message that you are willing to keep the peace at the expense of the dignity and well-being of those with less power and privilege. My friends and family members who supported Trump had 4 years to renounce his policies. Instead, they stood by him. They knew that Trump's policies had a very real impact on my life, and they showed me time and time again that they did not care. These calls for understanding ignore the very real fact that Trump has had a tremendous impact on the lives of so many marginalized people. And she mentions examples, the gunman opening fire at the synagogue in Pittsburgh a couple of years ago.
I mean, we don't even need
everything.
to hear her examples. We know if you don't know somebody that was personally hurt or affected by him over the last 4 years, you probably need to reach out and make more diverse friends because he's hurt everybody.
Here's the last line of her opinion piece. Those who supported Trump and those who remained neutral in the face of such cruelty enabled him. I will not forget, and I certainly will not forgive.
Good.
And that's where I'm at right now.
I get it, and I think they should all be held accountable, and especially for their obliviousness and complicity, because we can't afford it. We can't afford for half of the nation or half of the world to be oblivious to fascism.
Yes. I've got a couple of stories I want to get to real quick here. This is Daniel Bice writing for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. I was shocked when I read this. For fans of Fox 6 News, you may have noticed something this week. No Ted Perry. The main anchor at WITI television has not been on the air all week for its 5 and 10 p.m. newscasts. That's because Perry was suspended by the station, which is owned and operated by Fox Corporation, for his tasteless joke on social media about the death of U.S. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Here's what he wrote. Quote, 2020 takes Alex Trebek but leaves Mitch McConnell. Just end already. End of quote. Well, he ain't wrong.
I mean, he's not. And to be fair, that's honestly how a lot of the left feels about Nancy Pelosi. So how are they both still there? I don't get it.
Yeah. By the way, he took down the post and apologized.
Right. And do not threaten violence. Don't threaten violence online. You are not in a world right now where it's going to be okay. They'll take it down, but eventually, and I don't think it'll be long before they're going to be coming after people for what should be First Amendment rights. But as you see, we're losing our constitutional rights quickly. So be careful.
Yeah. What First Amendment? Do we have a First Amendment
I mean,
anymore?
I don't know that we do anymore. I'm not trusting it. I'm certainly not.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's just insane the things that have been going on.
That's what the sense of relief I got when I saw the numbers that Biden had won, is I felt like at least partially we would be able to hold on to some of those rights.
Yeah.
I've
got one final story I want to get to. This is our off-the-cuff segment for this week. This comes to us from autoblog.com. This is Ronan Glahn writing on November 18th. And by the way, thanks to longtime listener Pat for sending this to me. Apparently, the folks in Canada are imploring people to not let moose lick their cars.
Oh, no. Why not?
Because apparently they like road salt. And it's not good for their diet.
So now I have to get a car wash? I've been depending on these moose for a long time.
Oh, God. This is bad. By the way, if you encounter wildlife in Jasper National Park in Canada, You are not allowed to leave your car. If you entice, feed, or disturb wildlife in the park, your fine is $25,000 Canadian.
You'll never have to pay it. They'll eat you long before that happens. So that's only if you actually survive.
Yeah, the quote that was used is, road salt is like crack to moose.
Gosh, I'm not getting in between a moose and his crack.
By the way, they also warned drivers not to push moose away from your car.
Stay far away from Jasper Park, okay, friends?
Oh, my God. Well, we had to wrap it up, so I tell you what. We'll be back next week with more fun and hijinks. I'm Darren Gibson.
And I'm Katy Steele brewing for Jack Prince.
For Kristen Cook, please support independent media and the First Amendment.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.